global leader of eco-friendly future materials. Green tomorrow with POSCO.
Coming up on Arirang News, President Yoon believes cooperation between Seoul and Tokyo will gradually expand. This as he mentions Prime Minister Kishida's planned visit this weekend during a meeting today with Japanese National Security Advisor Takeo Akiba. At the Asian Development Bank's annual meeting in South Korea's Incheon, President Yoon vows the country will actively contribute to the economic development of the Indo-Pacific region based on inclusiveness, trust, and reciprocity. We spoke with the bank's special senior advisor to hear what he has to say about tackling climate change. South Korea's K-Royal Culture Festival returns at Gyeongbokgung Palace, welcoming guests from across the globe with a variety of cultural festivities. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in South Korea. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. With the Seoul-Tokyo Summit coming up this Sunday, President Yoon is looking forward to closer cooperation with Japan at a time when the two countries together face complex global issues. On Wednesday, President Yoon met with Takeo Akiba, Secretary General of Japan's National Security Secretariat, who was here to meet his Korean counterpart, Cho Tae-yong, to prepare for the summit. Akiba conveyed Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida's message that the upcoming visit is a way to show gratitude for Yoon's rather courageous decision to improve relations with Japan. According to the presidential office, the top security advisors agreed on the need to strengthen security cooperation together and with the U.S. In addition, the inaugural session of an economic security dialogue was held with discussions on enhancing supply chain resiliency and energy security. And on the economic front, the Asian Development Bank's 56th annual gathering has kicked off in the city of Incheon here in Korea. And President Yoon was there at the opening ceremony earlier on this Wednesday, addressing finance leaders and relevant officials from the public and private sectors. He highlighted Korea's commitment to broader regional collaboration to tackle post-pandemic challenges, including supply chain disruptions, the digital divide, and the climate crisis. Take a listen.
한국 정부는 인태 전략에서 밝힌 바와 같이 포용, 신뢰, 호혜의 3대 협력 원칙을 바탕으로 인태 지역의 경제 개발 협력에 적극 기여하고자 합니다.
The Asian Development Bank's latest annual meeting is the first in-person event since the start of the pandemic, and it runs until this coming Friday. Climate finance is one of the top priorities of the Asian Development Bank. Our finance correspondent Lee Dae-yeon spoke with the bank's special senior advisor on what to do to address the climate crisis for sustainable growth.
The impacts may come in different forms, but they're getting more extreme. Speaking about the climate crisis, ADB's Special Senior Advisor Warren Evans says developing countries will be the most severely affected by accelerating climate change. Rising sea levels and increasing tropical cyclones are affecting the Pacific Island nations, while the South Asian region, home to millions of farmers, is exposed to increased storms and flooding. Cities are no exception either, with their large populations of low-income households.
So all of these areas in Asia are highly vulnerable to climate impacts. And we don't have a choice from the ADB side but to focus on building resilience of those communities, those poor, vulnerable communities, to the impacts of climate change. And that's very much part of our focus.
Economic development is still a must for these countries. Evans says if development is not designed to be resilient to climate impacts, it will eventually fail, as social development and low-carbon resilience are inseparable. And that's what ADB is working for.
How can we change the way that we support those kind of projects so that at the same time we're reducing greenhouse gas emissions and increasing resilience to climate impacts? We need to do this through the development process, not separate from. And it's not an either or. We have to do it.
And to do this, the expert says public sector finance should be used to mobilize private sector investments in climate actions.
So we need to work with governments using public sector resources to, for example, help them establish a regulatory regime that enables private sector to invest, to have the institutions in government that actually encourage and support private sector involvement in climate action.
And Evans added that ADB has benchmarked South Korea's experience as the country has been working on green development in recent years.
We've worked with South Korea to use your experience in the urban sector on energy efficient urban development, on green urban development, on transmission, on water. Good water management. We've worked with Korea for a long time to use your experience to help developing countries learn from Korea.
He says some countries have made considerable progress in integrating low carbon into their transport and energy development process, though some questions remain about whether they can keep up with the growing impact of climate change. Idaehyun, Arirang News, Manila.
Investors anticipate that the U.S. Central Bank will proceed with a 0.25 percentage point rate hike on Wednesday. Jung Eun-ju has some of their expected scenarios.
The U.S. Federal Reserve is expected to raise interest rates by 25 basis points when it concludes a two-day meeting on Wednesday. According to the CME Group's FedWatch tool as of Wednesday morning, traders are pricing in an 86% chance of a rate hike. The Fed's meeting comes as uncertainties arise over the financial system following the sale of the First Republic Bank to J.P. Morgan Chase & Company, led by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Investor focus is on whether the Fed hints at a pause or further tightening of interest rates to control inflation. J.P. Morgan presented 4 different scenarios on how it sees the market reaction. The company said the hike and pause scenario is the most likely, and the S&P 500 could add 0.5% to 1%. The second scenario is a sustained rate after this raise. J.P. Morgan explained that the Fed is likely to suggest additional hikes as 2 consumer price index reports are scheduled before next month's meeting. In this case, the S&P 500 index is expected to decline between 0.75% and 1.25%. If the Fed does not raise the interest rate and stops raising it in the future, the S&P 500 index is expected to rise by about 1.5%. This third scenario, however, is unlikely. The final, also unlikely scenario is the Fed cutting rates, which would lead to a 2.5% increase of the S&P 500 index. If the Fed follows through with a 0.25 percentage point rate hike, the gap between the U.S. and South Korean benchmark interest rates will hit an all-time high of 1.75 percentage points, exceeding the previous 1.5. U.S. stock futures all rose on Wednesday morning as investors look ahead to the Federal Reserve's latest policy decision. Dow Jones Industrial Average futures climbed by 73 points or 0.22%. S&P 500 and Nasdaq 100 futures rose 0.21% and 0.03% respectively. On Tuesday, the major averages notched a second straight losing session as the Dow Jones, the S&P 500, and the Nasdaq Composite all dropped more than 1%. Jung Eun-ju, Arirang News.
Some medical workers, with the exception of professional nurses, have taken to the streets on this Wednesday to protest the recent passing of the Nursing Act by the opposition-led parliament that's designed to allow nurses more independence in their duties. They call for a presidential veto. Our political correspondent Lee Si-hoo explains.
A total of 13 associations of medical workers in South Korea began a partial strike on Wednesday. The groups mainly consist of nursing assistants and doctors who are protesting against the Nursing Act, which is aimed at giving nurses more independence in their duties. Some members of the Korea Medical Association and an estimated 10,000 members of the Korean Licensed Practical Nurses Association are calling on President Yoon Suk-yeol to veto the bill. They are working shortened hours and using their annual leave to take part in rallies across the country. They have warned of a second partial strike on May 11th and later a general strike if the president does not veto the bill.
If our request isn't accepted despite this much resistance, we will carry out a 4 million person strong general strike on the 17th.
Partial strikes are being carried out by members of local clinics on a voluntary basis to minimize inconvenience to patients. The general strike will also involve members of larger university hospitals. Last week, the opposition-controlled National Assembly passed a nursing act despite strong opposition from the ruling bloc. The act seeks to improve nurses' working conditions by defining their roles and duties separately from the Medical Service Act, which puts them, quote, under the guidance of physicians. It also defines the duties of nurses and nursing assistants separately. Doctors see it as an intrusion on their duties, while nursing assistants are concerned that the law will leave them out. Meanwhile, the nursing assistants who are protesting also want to change certification requirements so that nursing assistants will in general be more educated. This would make training courses available at universities as opposed to the current system, which requires only a high school diploma. Doctors are also protesting against the recent passing of the revision to the Medical Service Act. The change seeks to revoke the licenses of medical doctors who have been found guilty of any crime that has led to imprisonment. Doctors say that the measures are too harsh considering how, for example, disqualification under this rule could be caused by a car accident. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
A full dress rehearsal for the coronation ceremony for King Charles III took place today in preparation for the actual event that's coming up on Saturday. Despite the notable missing guests, eager members of the public have already begun to camp out for the best views of an event that hasn't taken place since 1953. Our Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
With less than a week to go until King Charles III's coronation in London, a full dress rehearsal took place in the early hours of Wednesday morning, with many onlookers watching the procession. Thousands of soldiers marched from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Abbey, along with the Diamond State Jubilee coach set to carry the king on his coronation day, the more comfortable British royal coach, according to the BBC. There has been much attention regarding the breaks in tradition other than the choice of coach, such as his attire for the ceremony and the ceremony itself being smaller, shorter, and more diverse than his mother's coronation 70 years ago. The guest list too has garnered controversy. As a state occasion, the British government controls the guest list of around 2,000 people. The King's sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, will both be in attendance, although Prince Harry's wife, Meghan Markle, will not. Many key political figures have also been invited, such as the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and former UK Prime Ministers such as Theresa May and Tony Blair. US President Joe Biden will not be attending himself, but has confirmed that First Lady Jill Biden will take his place. However, Reuters reports that the leaders of several nations, such as Russia and Iran, did not receive invitations as a result of their strained or suspended diplomatic relations with Britain. The festivities will last all weekend, running into Monday, which has been proclaimed a public holiday nationwide. Events include colourful parades, public concerts, spectacular light shows, and thousands of street parties across the UK and the Commonwealth. The public will be able to watch the ceremony from sites prepared along the route, as well as screening sites in London's major parks. According to The Telegraph, more than 15 tents have already been set up by eager members of the public to get the best view. While critics have questioned the cost of the lavish coronation at a time when the public is facing economic hardship, a palace spokesperson pointed to reports that more than £1 billion, that's roughly $1.25 billion, was expected to flow into the struggling economy on the back of the event. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
Tensions on the Korean peninsula continue to escalate, but there is a place in South Korea that offers a glimmer of hope for peace. Known for its symbolic significance, this part of Gangwon-do province offers visitors a view of North Korea on a clear day. Our Kim Hyun-sung was there.
Welcome to Hwacheon-gun County, a stunning area of Gangwon-do province near the border between North and South Korea. It's also home to many symbols of peace, like the Peace Dam on Paro Lake.
This is Paro Lake, the only freshwater lake in South Korea that has waters directly flowing in from north of the border. And this ship is taking us to the Peace Dam. It's the closest dam that South Korea has to the DMZ line, and it was built to stop waters flooding in from the north.
Not too far from the lake is also the World Peace Bell. The makers of the bell collected around 37.5 tons of empty shells from wars around the world to create the bell, which they left incomplete, with the hope of finishing it on the day when the two Koreas reunite in peace. Anyone can ring the bell when they visit, symbolizing their commitment to peace.
Hwacheon has a painful history of war, but it was also the site of victory. It's where people come to see the sacrifices made behind the freedom that we enjoy today.
At Hwacheon-gun County, tourists can also take South Korea's highest-reaching cable car to the top of Baekangsan Mountain, more than 1 kilometer above sea level. On a clear day, visitors can catch a glimpse of North Korea in the distance. However, due to the limited capacity of the cable car, only a couple hundred tourists can experience this unique opportunity each day. Despite being just a short distance away, North Korea remains a mystery to most of the world, with decades of separation between the two Koreas. Nevertheless, Hwacheon-gun County stands as a symbol of hope for a peaceful reunification. Kim Yeon-seung, Arirang News, Hwacheon.
This week, we take a close look on the outcomes of the recent summit between South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol and U.S. President Joe Biden. Today, it's about culture. As the South Korean president describes culture ties between the two countries, one of the 5 main pillars of the alliance, here's our culture correspondent Song Yu-jin on the achievements and prospects.
Last week's South Korea-U.S. summit showed the power of culture in diplomacy. President Yoon Suk-yeol's first official stop in the U.S. was to meet the CEO of Netflix. The company has pledged to invest a whopping $2.5 billion in Korean content over the next 4 years. That's double the amount it's put into Korea since 2016. The streaming giant also signed a memorandum of understanding with the Korea Creative Content Agency and the Korean Film Council to support future talent. This move is expected to open more doors to K-content.
Korean content creators and filmmakers will have the opportunity to experience how the biggest streaming platform produces its shows. This will create a pool of skilled creators, which could attract more investment in K-content.
At the Global Creative Industry Leadership Forum, President Yoon discussed ways to boost cooperation with video content titans like Walt Disney and Warner Brothers. Seoul's Culture Ministry also signed an MOU with the Smithsonian Institution, a group of museums, education, and research centers that will allow museums and art galleries to swap collections and collaborate on research. Culture Minister Park Bo-gyun attended all of these events. One expert says this shows that culture is at the forefront of diplomacy.
This highlights the growing importance of soft power like culture. Countries are now forging stronger diplomatic relations through cultural exchange programs and MOUs. And there hasn't been this much talk on cultural exchanges in the history of the South Korea-U.S. alliance.
But there's still a lot of work to be done.
Getting to know each other's cultures can really bring people closer together, so it's important to continue these partnerships long term. The thing is, many people want to see concrete progress within a few years or so. We should keep in mind that though the benefits of cultural exchanges might not be evident right away, they can lead to warm, long-lasting bonds between countries.
To make this possible, the Culture Ministry is creating a South Korea-U.S. Culture Alliance task force to recheck related policies and come up with follow-up measures. 송유진, Arirang News.
The Korean Royal Culture Festival is back this year with various events taking place to attract visitors from around the world, giving them a sense, taste, and a sound of the roots of Korean culture. Our Kim Jong-sil reports.
Gyeongbokgung Palace welcomes visitors from all over the world. The 9-day festival highlights all 5 palaces in central Seoul by offering cultural programs day and night, from musicals and concerts to plays. One of the most popular spots here at Gyeongbokgung is Saenggwabang, a royal kitchen that used to make desserts and tea for the kings and queens during the Joseon dynasty. Here, visitors can enjoy desserts made with dried fruits, pine nuts, and rice cakes that were served for the king and queen.
These days, you can often eat a lot of Western desserts, but I really enjoyed the traditional Korean desserts here that tasted somewhat more high-end and has a clean aftertaste.
After relaxing a bit and enjoying the king's dessert, visitors can walk down here to Sujeongjeon Hall and enjoy some music. Another highlight of this year's festival took place at the nearby Changgyeonggung Palace. This year, visitors can enjoy a play where the whole palace is a stage and actors walk from hall to hall for each scene. The play reenacts King Yeongjo's 60th birthday preparations. King Yeongjo was the longest-serving monarch of the Joseon dynasty and also spent a lot of time here at the Changgyeonggung Palace. More than 200 people from all over the world walked around the palace to watch the play.
It's really nice to see right in front of me a little bit what I've seen in historical K-dramas. You see the costumes, you see a little bit about the stories, and it's interesting to see it a little bit like live right in front of me.
One festival organizer said he hopes visitors will better understand the depth of Korean culture by witnessing and experiencing what palaces used to be like in the past.
The K-Royal Culture Festival is to show the culture of Korean royal palaces. We want visitors to witness and experience what those palaces used to be like in the past, so they can better understand the roots of Korean culture.
This year's festival runs until this Sunday. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
It's becoming more commonplace to encounter robots with AI technology, and the social welfare sector is taking full advantage using these robots to take care of the elderly and those with disabilities. Gangneung City has taken the lead in distributing these robots to households. Yoon reports.
This is 15-year-old Tae-jung. He suffers from autism spectrum disorder and developmental delay. He now has a new friend, Momo, an AI robot that helps with developmental disability treatment. Conversing with a robot helps with learning and understanding emotions.
왜 슬퍼하는 기분일까?
슬퍼하고 있는 표정이 있어.
그렇구나.
In Gangneung City, AI robots have been developed based on analysis from clinical research. 100 of these customized AI robots are set to be distributed this year to families with individuals living with developmental disabilities. These robots are expected to be of great assistance, especially to those that can't get help in a timely manner due to poor access to facilities or financial restrictions.
This AI robot provides a more systematic and educational treatment for children with developmental disabilities. It sets treatment goals and provides a plan based on the evaluation.
This is 69-year-old Ji-eun-hye. She's been living alone for over 20 years. But now she has the AI robot Tasom that's like a friend at times or even a grandchild keeping her company.
다솜아, 노사연의 바람 틀어줘.
요청하신 영상 틀어드릴까요?
The AI keeps track of her medication times and even prompts her through exercises. There are already 150 of these AI robots that help the elderly in Gangneung City alone.
I used to have trouble falling asleep, but Tasom has become a friend and it feels like I have another family member.
The robots aren't using very high-level technology yet, but the integration of robots in the social welfare sector is a big step. And the AI technology is expected to evolve and its role to expand further. Yoon, Arirang News.
Unseasonable heat will continue in central regions tomorrow. Daytime temperatures in Seoul will be close to those of early summer at 25 degrees. For the south of the country, relatively breezier spells are in store. Gwangju will see readings lower than the seasonal norms at only 20 degrees. Nationwide rain is in the forecast tomorrow, which will make conditions a bit stuffier than usual. Showers will be widespread and they will be heavy this time. Mountainous regions of Jeju Island will see torrential downpours of up to 400 millimeters. Parts of central regions, including the Seoul metropolitan area and Gangwon-do province, will see up to 120. Thunder and lightning may fall at times due to unstable atmospheric conditions. Tomorrow, Seoul and Busan will be starting off at 15 degrees. Rainy spells will be dominating for the daytime. Highs in Seoul and Chuncheon will be reaching 25, Daejeon 23, and Busan will make it to 21 degrees. This round of rainfall is forecast to ease off on Saturday afternoon. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all for this Wednesday night's newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back with the latest news tomorrow. Have a lovely night.